Hi, I'm Josh,
And I'm Yang.
and we're both members of the UC Berkeley Biodesign Immersion Experience, or BIE, for the summer of 2017. This is the first video in a series designed to teach you about the design process. This first video is about needs finding. We'll go over what needs finding is and the process involved behind it.
We will then look at a hypothetical site visit and look at the preparation necessary to effectively conduct such a visit. We will then go into stakeholder identification and see why that's important to needs finding.
Finally, we'll look at some sample observations, talk about some clues for getting observations in a clinical setting, and then converting those observations into problem statements. Let's get to it. The needs finding process is divided into three primary steps: observation, problems, and needs. The first step is to observe a situation, usually by visiting a location and talking to individuals in the field. Second, you identify problems based on your observations. The final step is to convert these problems into needs, which will be addressed through the design of your device. Let's start by looking at the first step of this process: observation. The best way to find unmet needs is to make observations and fully immerse yourself in the space.
For today's visit, we will be going to a location where we can find tons of unmet needs. The design loft, where we do most of our work.
Whoa! Slow down there. Before we do any visit, we need to do some background research first. What kind of things should we be looking into? One way to find more information is to do research. In this case, we could do a simple online search of the programs that use the Design Loft, BIE and BioE 192. Another way is to talk with a specialist, or someone who has experience with the space. For example, a frequent user of the Design Loft could be someone to interview.
Having a foundation of knowledge before entering a site will provide a nice frame of reference when making observations. This is especially true for clinical sites. It would be tough to understand what is going on in an HIV clinic if we did not have any prior background on what HIV is. We will now talk about stakeholders, which are parties with any form of interest for the product. When looking at the Design Loft, we have four main stakeholders.
Proteges, who are rising seniors preparing to take the capstone design course. Fellows, who are recent graduates who are helping guide the proteges. BioE 192 students, who will be addressing the unmet needs for the project. And lastly, our professors, who oversee and guide the program.
The importance of stakeholder analysis is to gain a holistic understanding of the Design Loft's use. By framing our own perspectives by those of the stakeholders, we can make sure that we have a full understanding of all their thoughts and opinions in our observations.
Some examples of stakeholders when we're looking at medical devices include the patients, the physicians operating the device, the manufacturers, the FDA, and insurance companies that may offer reimbursements.
Now, let's take a look at some observations we can make in the loft.
We should be asking questions like, are people using equipment correctly? Are users comfortable in the space? Is it easy to communicate in the loft? How is work efficiency? Does anyone have complaints? Are there any suggested improvements?
When making observations in the context of biodesign, like in our program, there are definitely some clues to find during any visit.
These are things like pain, death, risk, malfunction, or discomfort. If any of these are mentioned or observed during your visit, these are certainly places where you can find some unmet needs. Now, we're going to see what problems we can identify based on our observations. For example, based on our observation that people were speaking across desks, one problem could be that people are unable to communicate effectively due to the layout of the room. Another similar case is the observation that it can be difficult to find equipment for a project. The problem is that it makes students less efficient and can also be dangerous if hazardous equipment is in a location it shouldn't be.
And above all else, make sure you write down every observation that you can, even though you may think it's not relevant.
Maybe you notice something that your peers missed, or maybe you all find out that you realize the same trend based on your observations. Either way, The only way to find out is if you write it down. The next step is writing need statements based on the problems that we've identified. That's going to be covered in the next video.
Thanks so much for tuning in, and we hope you found the video useful.